Hi, my name's Andrew Keeping, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the art of practice, but more importantly, how to practice more efficiently. I'm going to pass on some of the insights that have been handed down to me by some of the greatest musicians, some of the best teachers and professors in my 30-year career of music. I will be trying to make sense of the science behind practice, how the brain works to be able to give you some of those ideas of becoming far more productive in your practice schedules and routines. And finally, I will give you my tried and tested 10 important tips to make your practice routines far more productive and effective. Collins English Dictionary states that practice as a variable noun means doing something regularly in order to be able to do it better. In other words, practice is the repetition of an action with the intention of improvement. It helps to increase confidence, speed, fluency, and accuracy. Practicing a musical instrument trains the visual, auditory, and motor skills simultaneously to aid the process of improved memorization of a score, oral recognition, and a greater physical ability. Okay, so here's a confession from me. When I was beginning to learn a musical instrument, I used to try and bluff my parents and my teachers into thinking that I was doing far more practice than I was. Of course, there were times when I could wing it and I got away with it. But I remembered there were times as well when I absolutely crashed and burned. I would actually dread that moment when I would go into my lesson thinking, oh no, he's going to hate this because I really haven't done the practice. Can you relate to that? Newsflash, there is no quick fix. Regular practice is the only way to be able to improve your craft of that instrument. In today's YouTube generation, everyone wants immediate results. Type in a question and boom, within seconds you have multiple suggestions to those questions. Want to order something? Well, type into Amazon Prime and boom, you have a delivery the very next day. Over the years, I've come across many students who struggle with having to put the time and effort into practicing to get any better. They want the best hack, the inside trick, or the fast track route to learning the guitar. Don't get me wrong, I don't blame them. It's a part of today's culture, the age of entitlement. However, we all know that if you have a passion for something and relish the opportunity to fulfill our passion, then we are more likely to seek out the opportunity to do it on a regular basis. Pleasure of being able to play that musical instrument that we first chose. And why did you choose that instrument? Only you will know that. What was it that just clicked in your mind that made you think, that instrument is for me? I know mine. I saw Andreas Segovia, a 90-year-old man, being wheeled onto the stage at Brent Town Hall. I was 5.5 years old, and I fell in love with this wooden box with strings attached, making the most magical sounds. And this man that could barely walk with his huge cigar stubs for fingers, making it speak to me. That's what I wanted to do. That's why I chose the guitar. So my challenge to you is this. You chose to take up your preferred choice of instrument because something sparked an interest in the first place. Let's rediscover what that was. Let's also harness that idea and find a way of making the practice that is required to improve your skills on your chosen instrument. Let's make that practice fun. But first, in order to make it fun and useful, we need to understand what practice is actually doing in our brain. We need to understand the science behind practice. Now, it used to really bug me that my teachers and professors used to refer to this muscular memory that I needed to achieve through hours of practice. And, of course, even at that tender age, I knew from my science lessons that muscles aren't capable of memory. However, we do need to understand what they were trying to suggest. And to do this, we have to understand what the brain is doing when we are repeating a learning process of practicing. There's this excellent video on YouTube, a TED-Ed video, by Annie Bosler and Don Green, where they explain about the two main types of matter in the brain. The grey matter, processing information and directing signals and sensory stimuli to nerve cells, or the neurons. Then you've got the white matter, which is a combination of nerve fibres, or axons, and fatty tissue. Axons are simply the long, thin projections of neurons. Their job is to conduct electrical impulses away from the main body of the neuron. Now, if you think of axons as an electrical wire, let's use this guitar cable, for example, in the way they function. Electrical wire usually has an insulation around it to prevent the loss of energy and keeping it moving efficiently along the proper path. Axons are exactly the same. They have this natural insulating sheath known as myelin. So when you're repeating an action multiple times, what you're actually doing is building up the layers of myelin around the axons, thus improving their insulation. Science has proved that the greater insulation makes such a difference in the axon's job that it helps the electrical signals to travel much faster through the body, like a superhighway, if you like. So this so-called muscle memory that my teachers refer to is really the brain and the muscles talking to each other along that superhighway at a much greater speed with less traffic, slowing it down and improving how action, recall, command and response all take place simultaneously. The techniques of using mental imagery and visualization have been researched and well documented and have been proven to be valuable assets to musicians preparing for exams, competitions, recordings, and performing on the concert platform. Let's look at memorizing a piece of music, for example. If you were to just think about the physical activity, that will trigger the parts of the brain responsible for controlling those physical actions. Whereas the visual imagery of the notation on the page, coupled with an understanding of the form and structure of the work, coupled with the physical activity of playing the notes, coupled with the sensation of how your body feels while playing the music, all sends multiple sensory signals to the brain. For example, I don't know if you do this, but when I'm on the phone, I'll be concentrating and focusing on what the person on the other end of the line is saying. And what I'll be doing, I'll be pacing up and down while I'm talking to them. I'm not aware of where I'm pacing, but I'll be walking up and down, or I might be sitting in my office and I'll be tapping my pen on a piece of paper, or I might be doodling, not really focused on what I'm doodling, but I might just be doodling. But what I'm actually doing is I'm using some physical motion to be able to match with the visual imagination that I would be receiving if I was actually watching and talking to that person face to face. The more senses you can integrate into your practice, the more parts of the brain are being stimulated, and therefore the greater the odds at recalling the information on the page in front of you. This also helps focus the brain rather than see the different senses as distractions. So I'm going to set you a challenge here. If you've got one of these problematic phrases, what I would suggest to you is try to play that while standing on one leg. Try to play that while tapping a different rhythm or a different pulse. That's a tricky one. Or try to do it while stomping up and down, marching up and down while playing that note. Anything that is a physical motion that is different to what you're playing, because what you will find is that you will come back to when you're playing in a stationary motion, it will be far more useful, it will be far easier to actually play that phrase. So, following on from utilizing our senses, we also need to be able to improve our multitasking skills. Now, my wife really gets cross at me because when I'm on the phone, I'll be focusing and concentrating on what the other person is saying at the other end of the line. And she'll be relaying something for me to pass on to the other person on the end of the line. And of course, I've got one person in one ear, I've got my wife in the other ear, and I'm struggling. So I get flustered and I even put my hand. I think you can imagine the scenario. And she says to me afterwards, she says, "I don't get you. You can play one hand with one thing, the other hand doing another thing. You're reading hundreds of dots on a page, and you might be tapping out a beat with your foot, and yet you can't listen to two people at the same time. No. Do you know what? That old cliche of being a bloke that can't multitask. But do you know what? I've trained for over 10,000 plus hours in my career of practice to be able to do those multitasking abilities. If, say, I was in an office where I was on the phone all day long and I had a manager come round and say something to me at that time, I might well be trained up to be able to do it. It's about that regular practice that helps you with your ability to multitask. Trying to multitask forces your brain to work much harder to process all the extra incoming information, using up more energy and ultimately leading to mental fatigue. Some scientists recommend avoiding multitasking. However, there are times when we can't avoid it. Playing a musical instrument is much like driving a car. If I'm learning to drive, I can't say to my driving instructor, today I'm just going to focus on the clutch and changing gear, if that's all right with you. I wouldn't get very far without engaging my visual, auditory and motor skills simultaneously. Plus, there would just be carnage, not being able to look outside of the screen and using all these other senses. But at some point, we are going to need to multitask and put them all together in practice. I often remind students to practice sight reading this way and remind them of the words of my old guitar teacher, Oliver Hunt, who suggested to break down the exercises and the sight reading so that I would play all fingering examples and I'd play only, then I would count and play, then I would sing and play, then I would count, sing and play, then I would call out the left hand fingers, call out the right hand fingers. But all the time that I'm doing this, I am thinking of everything at the same time. And he would finish by saying, by practicing with this degree of rigor at the beginning stages, all the essential foundations of hearing and coordination are laid, and much fruitless practice time is spared. I love that line. And it stuck with me. And it's something that made such an impact on me. And guitarists were notoriously bad at sight reading. However, I made a living out of sight reading. I spent a lot of time in recording studios as a session musician because they could rely upon my sight reading. My sight reading gave me a lot of repertoire that I would be able to learn quickly and work with different artists over a short period of time. So I thank him for that advice. It was such a useful tip. Just do everything at the same time. Think of driving that car. Okay, so knowing that the goal of our practice session is to get those myelin sheaths thicker and create that superhighway for electrical impulses, I've compiled my 10 most successful tried and tested tips and advice on how to practice better, or let's say more productively. Number 1, just do. Stop putting off what needs to be done. Just start it and you will get into the groove and flow of things before you even know it. We can all have a tendency to procrastinate and put things off. Find something to do on your phone or to watch on TV. Put away the distractions. Scientific studies have proved that there are certain times of the day when your brain is more productive to learning. For example, later morning, afternoon or evening. But these are not always available in a busy timetable. Humans are creatures of comfort and routine, so try to incorporate your regular practice time into your daily routine. When I was starting out, I would religiously practice as soon as I got in from school, then homework, then the evening was mine. During holidays, I would practice an hour in the mornings and an hour before dinner. This practice routine would become ritualistic and lengthened as I progressed. Interestingly, this discipline would have a profound impact on all my school studies and later develop into a strict method of working professionally. Virtuoso performers can practice hours a day, but they understand and value the fact that their bodies and brains need time to recharge to function optimally. They divide their practice routines into smaller sessions throughout the day. The Pomodo technique is a method that you may like to look into. You may also have heard of your circadian rhythm, which is a biological system that controls your sleep-wake cycle over a 24-hour period. But you have biological cycles that are shorter than 24 hours too. These are ultradian rhythms and are 90-minute cycles of peak productivity. I shall include the link so you can have a look into that if you wish. Number 2, setting the right atmosphere. Find the most suitable environment to practice. This will be personal to you. You may prefer to concentrate in a quiet practice room without distractions, or somewhere with more stimulation. However, do try to be consistent with your choice. This will help you focus on the task in hand, efficient and productive practice routine. Remember that always. Make sure you have everything you need available: a drink, utensils, a notebook, manuscript paper, the tools of your trade. This will prevent you from finding an excuse to get up and locate them. It's always advisable to have the same comfortable chair and a secure music stand. Technology is an amazing aid, providing you don't spend too much time faffing with it. Apps with tuners and metronomes are great too, but just remember, make sure you turn your phone onto airplane mode to avoid distractions. You can go off grid for an hour, remember. You know what? It's really quite liberating. Number 3, the warm-up. Playing a musical instrument involves the physical exertion of different muscle groups, tendons, ligaments, and joints. Like a physical workout, a warm-up is therefore essential. Don't make your warm-up boring and therefore something to avoid. A warm-up isn't just about getting your muscles moving. Take it as an opportunity to prepare your body and mind for work. Make this an opportunity to focus on how you're feeling, focus on your breathing, relax your posture, and create warm-up exercises that will be of practical use in the repertoire you are playing. It is the perfect opportunity to focus on the aspects of your technique. This does not mean rattling up and down hundreds of scales. I was very fortunate to attend a masterclass with Yo-Yo Ma, and he said much the same as the virtuoso guitarist David Russell. And both of them often create exercises that include the complex rhythms from the pieces that they're working on in their present program, and the arpeggio patterns from the harmonic structures of those same works. So they're making a practical use of their warm-up routines. I often recommend students write out repertoire lists. This is a list of pieces that have been previously worked on to a performance standard. They need to be maintained on a regular basis. For a beginner, this could comprise of just 5 small pieces, up to several hours worth of repertoire for a more advanced student. It is always so satisfying being able to play something well. Often, I've encountered students that have been having lessons for some time before they come to me. I would ask them in their first introductory lesson to play me a piece to gauge their ability. Then they would struggle through the last piece they'd been studying with their teacher. When asked if they could play the piece that they'd already learnt, they would inform me they've forgotten all about it. This is all too common. Where's the fun in that? What enjoyment are you getting out of playing the instrument when you're constantly just learning something? Playing through a different piece or pieces for your warm-up and cool down while focusing on your technique just reinforces the pleasure to be had from playing a musical instrument and give you the same buzz that inspired you to take up that said instrument in the first place. Number 4, focus on the job at hand. Setting a goal. Playing through just your favourite pieces isn't the same as practising. In addition, don't just leave it until the night before. We've all been there and we've all avoided the tricky section. You know the bit. The bit you always stop at, then you go back to the beginning and you avoid it every single time you come across it. It can be so easy to just push it to the back of our mind. However, it is much more effective to practice little and often and slowly chip away at your adversary day by day. You need to know what you are aiming to achieve. Have a set goal for each practice session before you start playing. Refer to the notes that your teacher may have given you as well. Have them out ready on the stand so you can check what you're aiming to achieve. You will find you progress significantly more quickly and effectively. Make your own notes if you need to. You can take this even further and break each goal down into smaller, more focused objectives. It's so satisfying to be able to tick off that section that was causing you so many issues, and now you can move on. It's about quality, not quantity. If you aim to practice smarter, not longer, you will find yourself with a lot more willpower and overcome the issues, and you'll be less likely to beat yourself up for not completing all those unrealistic targets. Number 5, the breakdown technique. So you have what appears to be an impossible problem section or phrase. Break it down into smaller and more manageable bits. Go super slow. Try to play the passages backwards, change the rhythm, whatever it takes. Don't forget to analyze your technique, hand position, embouchure, tonguing, bowing, breathing. Closer scrutiny can often resolve the issue and make sense of why you're getting that fluffed note or can't reach the note or the chord shape. Not every problem should be approached in the same way. If it's a rhythmic problem, try practicing the rhythm alone on a table or just using one note alongside a metronome so you don't have to think about the notes as well. Starting slowly, then gradually increasing the tempo. Once you've improved your accuracy and fluency, you will find reintroducing the notes much easier. When you've overcome the problem, try this valuable reintroduction to the context. Go back a few beats to try out the problem extract and then play through to the next bar by a couple of beats. Then build it up so you go back a bar and then go on a bar and then a phrase, etc. until you ensure continuity. If that trouble spot is still giving you grief, then make yourself a mental note to come back to that section again tomorrow with fresh ears and a clear mind. Chances are it would be much, much easier the next time round. Number 6, the 5 times consecutive rule. Now, this is something that I started, my dad actually did it with me, and we used to use the 5 greats. So we'd have 5 composers used to have to approve each time that I played through the problem phrase. So I would choose whatever composer I wanted to, and they had to give their approval before I could move on. But all 5 of them had to therefore approve it, and then I could move on to the next bit. What I do with my students, I say that what you need to do is be able to play that one problematic phrase. It could be a small detail, but play it 5 times consecutively perfect. That means 5 times, one after another. You might play it 25, 30 times, and you get to that 4th time, and then you make a little slip. Be strict with yourself. This is something I still do now. I remember I was doing a recital at the Purcell Room, and I was playing Sir Michael Tippett's The Blue guitar, and there was this one phrase, and I must have played it through about 50 times, and I was still being strict with myself with my 5 times consecutive rule. And do you know what it was? It was just being able to anticipate a slight adjustment with the hand, get the elbow in a little bit more as I was moving up, and then I discovered that I would be able to move it. When it came to being on stage at the Purcell Room, just me, my footstool and my chair, I came up to that point in the music and I wasn't thinking about it because I was so confident with that difficult phrase that I would fly by it without even realizing it, because my focus was elsewhere, on the musicality, on the performance, not on the problem phrase. That is why the 5 times consecutive rule works so well. Number 7, record yourself. The first time I sat in on a recording session, I was shocked by the way that your music and your playing is scrutinized like looking through a microscope. It was shocking how there would be certain phrases that you weren't aware of, or notes that might have been fluffed, or rhythmic elements that just were off. But you weren't aware of it because you were your attention was on the music in front of you, or your attention was elsewhere. And recording yourself really highlights the problem areas. And you can focus on those and work on those, and it will definitely make your practice far more efficient. Go one step further as well. Use your phone to video yourself so you can actually see your posture as well as hearing yourself. Really useful techniques and valuable assets to your practice schedule. Number 8, practicing techniques away from your instrument. Know your craft. It's also important to research outside of your practice times in order to understand your instrument, its repertoire, the history of the period, and why the music is written a certain way. Become better informed and know your craft. Singers should understand the language and how to pronounce the words accurately and in the appropriate dialect. It is essential to understand the meaning of the words you are singing or how you can portray the emotion behind those words. Saturate yourself in YouTube videos of the great artists of the past and present. Listen to recordings and analyse just what sets them apart from others and what it is that makes that performance great. Visualising yourself playing the music whilst following the score is such a valuable experience and an aid to practice. I remember receiving a call from my manager. He had told me that there'd been a competition in Miami and he needed me to fly out that night. The competition was a composition competition, and the winning work was a work for soprano and classical guitar. And I'd be travelling out to Miami to work with a world-famous operatic soprano. Now, of course, this is exciting, but it's also hugely intimidating because how was I going to get the music? In those days, it was faxed through to me. My manager faxed it through, and you know, those really thin pieces of paper that you smudged so easily. So I had to take great care of it. But I wasn't going to be able to play until I got to the studio in Miami the next morning. So on the plane, what I'm doing, I'm practicing looking at the guitar and putting the fingering in this hand and just preparing the right hand pattern. By the time I got the taxi to the rehearsal studios, I knew that piece inside out and I had a confidence so that night the duo went on stage and we performed it confidently, fluently, and, dare I say, flawlessly. Number 9, write on your music. Don't be afraid to make notes on your scores. Use a pencil. Many of my scores look like a World War II battle plan. Of course, you may need to keep your scores or handwritten music in pristine condition, so photocopy your score and do whatever it takes to make it easier to interpret the music. Just don't photocopy the music illegally, of course. Heaven forbid. Add fingering, highlight the repeat marks, dynamics, tempo changes, anything that will help jog your memory for the next time you practice, rehearse, or perform. And finally, number 10, just practice smarter, not necessarily longer. I'm often asked how long should a student practice, often by the parents, or a graduate student feeling guilty for spending too long at the party the night before. You'll probably accomplish a whole lot more in a short amount of time if you have a very focused objective. If you're going to practice for 10, 20 or 30 minutes, less than normal, then whatever you do, make it productive. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, you will be pleased with your success and you may even continue longer. I recommend that you write out a practice schedule to follow. Give each section a time limit and put a countdown timer on your phone. This will ensure that you cover all areas and don't focus too much on one item and miss out others. But remember, don't forget to reward yourself. How? By playing a piece of music or two that is from your repertoire list that you know really well with a confidence, fluency and an emotion, because that's why we chose to take up that instrument in the first place. All those hours of practice that you've devoted to that instrument are then worthwhile for that performance. Thank you for joining me. I hope that you found this useful. If you have, subscribe and press the bell button to be reminded of when I upload new videos. If you liked it, press the like button. If you haven't, I'm sorry. I will try and do better next time. But in the meantime, thank you for joining, and I hope to see you next time. All the best.